over here. All right. So brain and cranial nerves. When it comes to the brain and cranial nerves, what are we looking at? So the brain is the center for your intelligence, your intellect, of where our emotions are perceived and developed, our behavior and memory. Different parts of the brains, they specialize in doing different jobs. All right. So all these things that we mentioned, they occur in different regions of the brain. The brain is very well protected, just as we saw in the case of the spinal cord. These are vital organs. They're very important, so they're very well protected. Now, we'll generally, very generally, look at what functions take place in which regions in the brain, so it kind of goes along with that. And again, we'll look at spinal cord and nerves, their connection with the brain, and what parts they end up influencing or controlling within the body. When you look at the adult brain, there's 4 parts that it's made up of. You have the brainstem, the cerebellum, the diencephalon, and the cerebrum. Okay, so we have our brainstem over here. Your brainstem. Next, we have the cerebellum. That's this part here. Brainstem. Okay, brainstem, cerebellum. Then we have this part here is the di means 2. So the thalamus and hypothalamus, they make up your diencephalon. Okay, it's the diencephalon, thalamus and hypothalamus. So what do we have? Brainstem, cerebellum, and diencephalon. Last, we have the big part up over here, all this stuff, that's white matter. This is your cerebrum. Okay, so we have the brainstem, cerebellum, diencephalon, and cerebrum. All right, these are the 4 main parts of the brain. So what's protecting the brain? All right, what are the parts that protect the brain? So as I told you before, again, it's a very important organ. Therefore, you have bone. The cranium protects it. In addition to that, there's tissue. Those are your meninges. In addition to that, there's also a fluid that acts kind of as a shock absorber for the brain, and that's going to be the cerebrospinal fluid. Additionally, in that, again, brain is highly vascular. A lot of blood is needed for the brain to work because it needs a lot of oxygen. In addition to that, it needs a lot of sugar also, or not sugar, but carbs or fat for it to work. So again, both fat ends up being utilized by brain as well as carbs. So therefore, because it's highly vascular, we need to protect what moves within the blood vessels. So there is a blood-brain barrier. Not everything that in blood is able to pass through this blood-brain barrier. This serves as a protective function. Okay, so when you look over here, this is the bone that's protecting the brain. Okay, so you have bone, and then you have the meninges. That's the soft tissue. What is that soft tissue? Again, that's your the dura mater, arachnoid, and the pia mater that you can see over here. In addition to that, here's your, within this region here, you have cerebrospinal fluid that's also flowing through. What else do we have? CSF, yeah, that's there. So again, it acts kind of as a shock absorber. What else? Yeah, that's, see anything else? No. All right. Next part over here, we talk about CSF or cerebrospinal fluid, and this is it's a colorless liquid. Look, it's colorless, so it's like water. And again, it protects the brain against brain as well as the spinal cord against injuries. I told you it acts kind of like a shock absorber. In addition to that, against chemicals as well, or certain microbes. Let's put it that way. Now, the cerebrospinal fluid, it forms in the ventricles of the brain. Okay, so this is where it's produced. Don't worry about the flow. Just know that within the third and fourth ventricles, this is where it's going to be eventually leaves from. The lateral ventricles, it's being produced from there. So when you look over here, this is where you're going to end up having CSF. It ends up being produced here. It comes out there, and then it just it enters the fourth ventricle. From the fourth ventricle, it will run down the central canal of the spinal cord. So throughout this region, all these regions, you have, again, cerebrospinal fluid production takes place here and there, okay, within lateral ventricles. From the lateral ventricles, it goes to the third ventricle, from the third ventricle, and then it moves down to the fourth ventricle. From the fourth ventricle, it goes into the central canal of the spinal cord. Okay, so this is how it flows, CSF flows. This is how CSF gets produced. Moving along, blood-brain barrier. All right, so what is this BBB? Blood-brain barrier. So this allows certain things to pass through, and it prohibits other things from entering into the brain. Oxygen is able to go through. Glucose is able to go through into the brain. Okay, so glucose and oxygen is able to pass freely through this blood-brain barrier. And again, its job is to protect against any disease-causing microorganism, pathogens, and other harmful substances. Particles such as proteins and antibiotics, they're not able to cross this blood-brain barrier. So if you remember when we were talking about spinal tap and we talked about introduction of antibiotics, this is one of the reasons why it is done. You can't, if there is an infection of brain and spinal cord, then and you need to treat it with antibiotics, then you have to do the spinal tap in order to introduce antibiotics. Fortunately, carbon dioxide, anesthetic drugs, oxygen, and unfortunately alcohol is able to cross the blood-brain barrier. When we talk about the brain stem, we're talking about three things, okay, for the brain stem. The brain stem, it's made up of the medulla oblongata, or some people just call it the medulla for short. There's the pons, as well as the midbrain. So these three structures, they constitute your midbrain. I'm sorry, not midbrain, the brain stem. Okay. All right, so this is a good table to look at. And I'm not going to go over all this, but this is what you can study, and you can expect questions on your exams from here as well. This is a part of the brain. This is what the function is. Okay, so cerebrum, what does the cerebrum function to do? Again, sensory areas that are involved with perception of information that end up having, that play a role in the motor controls. They end up, all those, they come up over here. Okay. Literally pretty much everything that you're able to, when you're talking about moving your hands and all your conscious control, is cerebrum. Okay? Mostly everything conscious that gets done is coming from here. Now let's go to the diencephalon. Okay, when you move on to the diencephalon, again, remember what we said, diencephalon is made up of your thalamus and the hypothalamus. So they both have different controls. So hypothalamus, it controls and integrates your autonomic nervous system in addition to your pituitary gland, all right? So it does a lot of things. So again, like regulating your body temperature, your eating behavior, your drinking behavior, that's all done over here. Also, look, it produces hormones such as oxytocin, and oxytocin is an interesting hormone. Oxytocin, it kicks in. So in women, for example, oxytocin, when you're having a baby, okay, when you're having a baby, your body produces oxytocin. So it helps reduce pain. But in addition to that, the other thing that oxytocin does is that it makes you fall in love. Okay, so this is the love hormone. Think of it like that. If you look at a baby when it's born, babies are very ugly when they're born. Because first of all, if you think about it, logically speaking, a woman is giving birth she's in labor for God knows how many hours, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 hours. A lot of pain during that time. Now, so, you have this thing inside of you that's causing you all this discomfort and pain for about 20 hours, and it's pretty intense pain. Then when it does, you end up delivering that baby, there's a lot there's more pain that's involved during that actual delivery process. That baby is going to be covered in blood, fluid. Its head's probably going to be somewhat, distorted as it's coming through the birth canal. It looks like an alien, okay? The baby. So it's ugly. It's not. It doesn't look too good. Again, it's covered. It's kind of smelly at that point, just because it's within all those fluids. But mother instantly falls in love with that baby. Oh, my baby. Well, the reason you're falling in love with that baby and you forget about the pain that you have is because you have a huge surge of oxytocin. Right? It makes you fall in love with that baby. So mothers love their baby. Also, if you think you love your boyfriend, Buse, or anybody else, this is that same hormone. Guys, you think you love your girlfriend, this is what the hormone that gets produced. All right. So again, it's just you don't really love. It's just tricks. It's chemicals. That's all it is. That end up giving this feeling of quote unquote love. Real love is not like that. You don't have these extremes. All right, cerebellum. All right, so look at what it does. It compares intended movements with what actually is happening with the complex. So again, what it does is it coordinates complex activities, okay, skilled movements. Okay, it also helps regulate your balance and postures. And again, they think that it may have something to do with processing languages. But again, cerebellum also has a role in that also, okay, in terms of language and memory. So again, not cerebellum, the cerebrum and cerebellum. Cerebrum is mostly responsible for not only memory, but language also. But now they think that cerebrum also has something to do with it. All right. Brain, so those people that can speak multiple languages, 3, 4, 2, whatever, certain areas of their brain, if you were to look at a scan, they'll be much more active than those that don't use it, that don't know as much language. So if you look at most of the Turks over here who don't speak English, they just speak Turkish, it's not going to be very active. But then, you go to, certain people in Africa, for example, they speak their native language. Like, for example, the Somalis. Somalis can speak Somali, and then they speak Arabic, and then also they speak English. So 3 languages, a lot of activity over there going on. Those areas of the brain, they're going to be far more enhanced, as well as the cerebellum, than those who speak 2 languages or just 1 language, for that matter. All right. You go to the midbrain. Midbrain relays motor output, okay, keyword output, from the cerebral cortex to the pons, and sensory input from the spinal cord to the thalamus. All right, so let's talk about the pons. What is pons happening over here? Pons relays impulses from one side of the cerebellum to the other side. So this is the connection between one side to the other. It also helps control breathing. Then you go down to the medulla oblongata. Medulla relays sensory input and motor output between parts of the brain and spinal cord. Again, this is the part that's responsible for consciousness as well as arousal. The vital parts within the medulla, they end up regulating smooth muscle activity in maintaining your blood pressure. So again, for blood vessel diameter, they end up having a role in that. Your heartbeat, breathing also. Okay, so breathing, primarily looking at the respiratory center within the medulla. That's responsible for your breathing. So both these 2 things, pons and medulla, they end up the respiratory center of the medulla, and the pons, they regulate your breathing. So when there's brain damage, you can't breathe on your own. This is the part that's damaged. Okay, the brainstem. This is the part of the brainstem that's damaged. The medulla and the pons that end up being damaged. All right. So No need to go over all these because we just kind of went over all that. All right, right and left side, what are some of the differences? So when you look over here, again, right side seems to be more enhanced than the left. They're nearly identical. So look, receives somatic sensory signals from and controls muscles on the left side of the body. Okay, this is on the right side. So the right side controls the left. When you move to the left side, it's going to be controlling the right side of the body. Okay, so receives somatic sensory signals from and controls muscles on the right side of the body. One does left, the other does right. Reasoning is done on the left hemisphere of the brain. Reasoning, right? Your artistic and musical awareness is on the right side. Pattern perception, space perception, that's on the right side. Recognizing faces, okay, and what facial expressions mean is also right side. If you're looking at sign language, that's also left, that's left side, as well as, again, science, math, that comes from the left side of the brain. Again, written language, as well as speech, the languages that you know, that's left side of the brain. Emotional, so right side is a little bit more emotional, I guess. Also, it makes up pictures in your mind, okay? Smell is controlled by the right, not controlled, but it gets perceived on by the right side as well. All right, let's move along. All right, so when you look at the cerebrum, right? Cerebrum, it has different lobes that are present. So what are these lobes? Again, very simplistic. You have your frontal lobe, parietal. Frontal is going to be the front part. Parietal is going to be the sides. Temporal is going to be the lower sides, and then occipital lobe is going to be towards the back. So when you look over here, this is your this is the back part, right? So you have the occipital. Well, that's the back. This is the so this is anterior view. That part's posterior. Hopefully there's another photograph. Yeah, good. There is another photograph we'll look at that goes over this. All right. In terms of for the functional organization of the cerebral cortex, there's sensory areas and motor areas. Again, sensory areas, they're there to perceive different types of sensations, right? So there's a primary somatosensory area. There's among that, there's also a visual area. There's an auditory, a gustatory, this for taste, and there's also another region for smell. Okay, we call that olfactory. And then as far as motor areas go, there you have the primary motor, and then you have the Broca speech area. So when you look over here, this is it. This is your occipital part over here. Your temporal part is over here. This is your the frontals over here, and then we have the parietal lobes over here. Okay, so your right and left parietal. This is going to be your right side. So this is the right parietal, and within these regions, you end up having these very specific parts that end up having control over certain things. All right. Then you have nerves, cranial nerves. Okay, these are nerves that come off of the brain, directly off the brain. So they're numbered 1. So let's start off with this one, right? You have cranial nerve number 1, which is the olfactory nerve. Okay, olfactory nerve is cranial nerve number 1. Next, we have, let's see what they have. Why is this like that? You have cranial nerve. I think, yeah, 1, 2. Oh, interesting. They don't have all. Okay. Here. So cranial nerve number 1 here, this olfactory nerve. And again, you come over here, you can see it. I don't know why they didn't have they're not showing cranial nerve number 2. So anyways, cranial nerve number 1, this is olfactory nerve. Okay, there you go. Optic nerve is right over there. Perfect. Cranial nerve number 2 is the optic nerve. As you go down from the optic nerve, okay, cranial nerve number 2. You have cranial nerve number 3, your oculomotor nerve. All right, oculomotor nerve. Make sure you memorize this. You have to know this one way or the other. You'll see it. Make sure you memorize it this week. Okay. Memorize this week. If you don't, you will regret it next week. That's all I'll say now about that. So oculomotor nerve is optic nerve, cranial nerve, optic nerve is cranial nerve number 2. Oculomotor nerve is cranial nerve number 3. When you go from there, then we have cranial nerve number 4, which is the trochlear nerve right over there. Okay, trochlear nerve is over here. Cranial nerve number 5, it's going to be your trigeminal. There it is, trigeminal nerve. Cranial nerve number 6 is the abducens nerve. There it is. Abducens nerve is cranial nerve number 6. Your facial nerve is cranial nerve number 7. Where is it? There it is. Facial nerve, cranial nerve number 7. Next, we have the glossopharyngeal nerve. Glossopharyngeal nerve is cranial nerve number 9. Where is it? There it is, glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay, so again, it goes under the tongue and again your throat, glossopharyngeal. That's how it is, glossopharyngeal. And then hypoglossal is going to be under the tongue, hypoglossal. Okay, hypoglossal nerve, glossopharyngeal nerve. Did we do that one? We have, which one? We missed this one. The cranial nerve number 8, the vestibulocochlear nerve. Vestibulocochlear nerve. Then there is the vagus nerve, which is number 10. Here it is, vagus nerve. You can see vagus nerve. It helps control your lungs and your heart also. Or not control, it influences that. Let's put it that way. Vagus nerve, it first of all, it's a mixed nerve, meaning that it has both parts for sensory input as well as motor output. So the sensory part, it's for your vagus nerve. The sensory part, it's it plays a role in some taste perception, usually in the epiglottis. It also helps monitor. It plays a role in monitoring blood pressure and also your oxygen, carbon dioxide levels in the blood. It takes, it monitors or detects pain, touch, heat from skin about your ears. Okay, from the skin of your ears, the external part of the ear. Also, sensation from your abdominal organs as well as your thoracic region is conducted through there. Your swallowing, your ability for swallowing, okay, vocalization, even for coughing, that's all vagus nerve. And of course, that's going to be the motor, not the sensory, but the motor part of it, the motor branch. There's also, again, your GI organs, your digestive organs, and even your lungs. It plays a role in regulating, the tubes around the lungs that make up the lungs, whether they're constricted or dilated. That's controlled by this vagus nerve. Vagus nerve also, it can decrease your heart rate. It can send signals to decrease your heart rate. So it's an important nerve. Accessory nerve, okay, that's cranial nerve number 11. There it is, accessory nerve, cranial nerve number 11. It allows for head movement. Okay, so again, you want to move your head and also your pectoral girdle, this upper part, pectoral girdle. That's all by, again, this is cranial nerve number 11. That's your accessory nerve. Then lastly, you have your hypoglossal nerve over here, cranial nerve number 12. Again, for swallowing, even again, for you to move your tongue to form words, speech, that's all hypoglossal nerve. All right, what's next? There we go. Yeah, these, make sure you memorize all the cranial nerves and what they do. So that's it for chapter, what is that, chapter 18. Now moving along with chapter 19. Chapter 19, now we go over the ANS. So what exactly is the ANS? ANS is the autonomic nervous system. Okay, again, we already went into this. We talked about autonomic nervous system before. Okay, so very general. We're not going to go into a lot of details because, well, again, there's too much material, and you guys will learn. Nurses, you guys will learn a little bit more about it when you take another class. But make sure you pay attention to this, especially in your physiology also. So what makes up the autonomic nervous system? You have, obviously, you have sensory components to it. So you have autonomic, sensory neurons. In addition to that, there's an integration center. In addition to that, there's going to be a motor component to it. So that's going to be your autonomic motor neurons. Now, aside from that, there is a completely separate division, which is the enteric division as well. And this, remember, controls your digestive functions. Enteric. That's all this is responsible for. Once again, make sure you learn all of this. You have to memorize it by next week. If you don't, you'll be very sad. All right. The somatic nervous system, it includes both sensory as well as motor neurons. Okay, the somatic nervous system has both sensory and motor neurons. It's able to convey input from somatic senses and from the receptors for special senses, and we'll talk about this in this lecture also. Now, comparatively, the autonomic nervous system, or the ANS, somatic nervous system, with the SNS, ANS, SNS, okay? SNS, somatic nervous system, ANS, autonomic nervous system, okay? The main input, it comes from the organs, visceral and sensory neurons, okay? So usually, again, this is it's dealing with information coming from within the body. Autonomic neurons, they regulate, again, the activities of your organs. And it has, again, you learned about this already last week. It has both a sympathetic as well as a parasympathetic branch to it. Okay, sympathetic and parasympathetic branch to it. Now, the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system is fight or flight. Okay, this is what this is the response that it has: fight or flight. Sympathetic has fight or flight response. So what is that? Well, fight or flight happens when you're under stress, when you're being threatened. So again, you're walking down, and all of a sudden a huge dog comes in front of you. Right? What do? You do one of two things: you either run or you fight that dog. So now, if you think about it, you're walking down, and then again the dog pops in front of you. Think about all the things that happen to you. The dog just jumps out, starts barking at you. He's salivating, and he's looking very mean and angry, and looks like he wants to attack you right there. Your eyes, the pupils are going to dilate right away, right? They get very wide because now they want to see what's going on. They want to get as much light as they can to process that. Your heart rate, okay, it starts to increase. How hard the heart squeezes also starts to increase. So in other words, your blood pressure goes up, your heart starts functioning faster as well. Your heart is contracting faster. So all this is ensuring that blood is circulating very quickly, and also it's being sent out with enough pressure for everything to diffuse easily as well. So the main reason the heart is starting to beat very fast is because it's trying to bring in a lot more oxygen. So all those muscle cells, essentially skeletal muscle cells, are able to get it. So in order for it to be able to do that, it needs to be able to bring in air as well, a lot more oxygen, air. So the airways, the passages for our airways, they start to widen up, so they dilate. So again, this just allows for easier diffusion of air into and out of your lungs. Now, the blood vessels that supply organs that are involved in exercise or fighting off danger, they end up dilating. Why? Because again, they are going to be playing a role in trying to keep you alive. So therefore, a lot more blood needs to go there. For example, again, your skeletal muscles, a lot of more blood, so much blood will go there. So they end up dilating. Now, other blood vessels that, for example, that are going toward your, I don't know, your stomach and your intestines, they will constrict. Why? Because at that point, we don't want blood going to our intestines, okay, or our kidneys for that matter. No, we just want to stay alive. So again, the organs that are going to ensure keeping you alive are your muscles. Okay, those muscles, if they're able to contract and again either make you to run very fast or again efficiently make your arm muscles and leg muscles contract to fight that animal off, it'll keep you alive. So that's your sympathetic response to it. Glucose gets released. This increases blood glucose levels. Now, again, skeletal muscles, they need what? Oxygen and sugar, right? So because the liver is releasing this stored glucose, again, through glycogenolysis, in addition to that, through lipolysis, breaking the fat down, your muscles will have an energy source, okay, to produce ATP to be able to do the work. So everything else, all the other organs, they end up being inhibited. Right? So as I said, stomach, intestines, no, they're not going to get enough. The amount of blood going there decreases. So this is the sympathetic. So what's going to be the parasympathetic? So if this is flight or fight, then the other part to it is what is called the rest and digest. Okay, so remember, we have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic. So this was the sympathetic branch, sympathetic. Okay, sympathetic and parasympathetic. So sympathetic, this is all that response. The parasympathetic, it has the opposite effects. Parasympathetic peoples they'll constrict instead of dilating. Heart rate will decrease. The force of heart contraction will decrease. Blood pressure also decreases. Airways start to constrict, right? More blood will flow to the organs of digestion, okay, and resting. That's all. It has opposite effects, and that is the parasympathetic. So sympathetic, parasympathetic. Okay, so do not confuse those two. Remember, sympathetic division, sympathetic starts with the letter S, so does the word stress. So again, remember I told you fight or flight is a stress response. So sympathetic, stress, okay, parasympathetic, that's when parasympathetic starts with the letter P. When you're eating food, you're at peace, right? So again, parasympathetic, this is your rest and digest. So easy way to remember. Moving on to chapter 20, all right? So chapter 20 goes over your somatic, well, let's take a break, all right? Let's take a break now. And we'll continue afterwards. So let us stop this. Actually, we'll just keep recording it. I don't think we have too much. All right. Good. Yeah, we'll take a break and then we'll come. We'll start in a little bit. We'll come back in about 10 minutes. Okay, moving along. Let's go to our next chapter, chapter 20. So chapter 20, again, it is, hold on just a minute. Let me, so
I'm not hearing anything. Hello?
Is this, has it started already?
sama doomi daa nga bëgg a def fettam moo may nettali man am naa ko may nettali ba pare démb bu dem demoon marché dëgg laa mu ñëw rek di yuuxu maam ñu ne ko dem nga marché ne maman di jooy ko ko fab mu dóor rek dóor rek mu ne
Can you please close your mics?
mais nag bu nga xam naa ne sama yaay du dem sama maam dem bu ne boobaa nag ma def la
Your mic. Plants.
Hello, sir. We are not hearing anything here. Oh, your mic is mute.
I don't think he started the lecture yet. So let's hold on a little bit.
The something just went from slide 1 to and then on slide 3.
I think he said he's coming though. Yeah, he'll be right back. What is going on? Like,
I just realized that the microphone was off. All right. The microphone was off. And nobody said anything because I guess you guys are not here.
we did, sir. We said,
So
Me time stuff.
we noticed actually.
let me go back. Let me go back. All right. Let me go over again. So we will go with, all right. So chapter 20. Chapter 20 is on, all right. So chapter 20 is on somatic senses and motor control. All right, so when you're talking about sensation, this is a conscious or subconscious awareness of changes that are taking place both inside and outside the body. So internal conditions and external conditions of the body. Now, in order for sensation to occur, 4 conditions have to be satisfied. Okay, 4 things need to be satisfied. One is stimulus, and stimulus is a change, a stimulus or some change that takes place within the environment that's capable of activating neurons. That has to occur, right? So first need is a stimulus, a change within the environment that's capable of activating sensory neurons. All right. Now, once that occurs, once there is a potential, you have something that's capable of making that change within a sensory neuron, then you actually need that sensory neuron, right? Or that sensory receptor. So that sensory receptor, its job is to convert that stimulus into a nerve impulse, right? Now, once the sensory receptor produces a nerve impulse, that nerve impulse, it needs to move along a pathway, move along a route. And that is what number 3 is in terms of conduction. So the nerve impulse, it has to be conducted along that neural pathway from that receptor, from the sensory receptor, all the way to the brain. Okay, so that is number 3. Nerve impulse, it needs to be conducted through that nerve pathway from the sensory receptor to the brain. And then when you look at number 4, the last part is integration. So integration, this is, again, part of the brain that ends up receiving and it integrates that nerve impulse, which ends up actually defining it meaning, okay? In other words, or could produce a sensation for it. This is what integration involves. Now, that stimulus, it could be in the form of light. The stimulus could be heat. It could be pressure, it could be mechanical energy, or it could be chemical energy. That sensory receptor, it responds to that stimulus by altering its membrane, by altering the membrane permeability to small ions. And most of these receptors, the flow of, again, the result ends up being a flow of ions across that membrane, which then produces nerve impulse. Then that nerve impulse gets conducted along that sensory pathway towards the central nervous system, towards spinal cord and brain. Okay, so again, these are the 4 things that take place. Now, the next thing that we talk about are, all right, sensations. They could be grouped into 2 classes. There's general senses and the special senses. So general senses refers to 2 types of senses. There's somatic senses and visceral senses. Now, the somatic senses, these are tactile sensations. Tactile sensations such as touch, pressure, vibration, itch, and tickle. The thermal sensations, they're going to be that of warm and cold. Pain sensation, it's obvious. And then there's proprioceptive sensation. Proprioceptive sensations, it allows you, again, it lets you know where your limbs are, okay? Where the joint and muscle positions are. and also where your head is. This is all proprioception. Now, the visceral senses, it provides information about conditions within the organs. Now, such as pressure within an organ, how much stress there is, chemicals, nausea, for example, or temperature, or even hunger. Then we move on to special senses. Special senses, we're going to cover more in 21. In this one, we're going over somatic senses. So again, but this very simplistically and generally right now, somatic senses, or I'm sorry, the special senses, they are going to be, who knows, what could they be? Special senses. Nobody knows special senses? Of smell, taste, vision, hearing, as well as equilibrium. These are all special senses. So again, once again, that's taste, vision, hearing, and equilibrium. These are your special senses. Next, we talk about sensory receptors. They could be grouped in one of three ways. So they could be grouped according to the structures of their sensory receptors. So, for example, when we're talking about the structures of their sensory receptors, it could be, okay, so there's three, for example, for them. There's free nerve endings of sensory nerve receptors. There's also encapsulated nerve endings of sensory receptors, or sometimes we have separate cells that synapse with sensory receptors. So these three are examples of the structures of the sensory receptors. Also, they could be grouped according to the type of stimulus they detect. What do they detect? Lastly, they could be grouped according to the location of the receptors, either in the origin, in addition to the origin of the stimuli, okay, that the information is coming from. So, for example, we have photoreceptors. What do you think photoreceptors detect? Bushra, what does photoreceptors detect? Bushra is gone. Jala, Jala,
Teacher.
attendance time again. Jala,
I am here, teacher. Can you hear me?
Jala, yes. Tell me, Jala, what do you think photoreceptors, what do they detect?
I can't hear.
What do photoreceptors? I can hear.
It can be retina.
Okay, it could be. Okay, all right, good, Jala, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. How about Emmanuel? Emmanuel?
Sir, light, sir.
Light. Very good, Emmanuel. Light. So photoreceptors, they will detect light. The next on the list are mechanoreceptors. Mechanoreceptors, Ezra Jalebi. What do you think mechanoreceptors do? What do you think they'll detect? Ezra, absent. Okay. Fatma Bolut. Fatma, absent. All right. Furkan Kilic. Furkan.
Yes, teacher.
What do you think mechanoreceptors do?
Yes, teacher.
Yeah, mechanoreceptors. What do you think they detect?
Repeat question.
What do you know what mechanoreceptors are able to detect? Do you have an idea?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay, no problem. How about Haneen? Haneen. Haneen Abazid. Haneen Abazid. Abazid, yeah. Haneen, gone. Haya. Haya Dia.
Yes, sir.
What do you think mechanoreceptors do?
Touch or pressure.
Very good, yeah. Mechanoreceptors, they're sensitive to mechanical stimulation like touch or pressure. Excellent. Very good, Haya. Very good.
Sir, I think sound is also included in receptors.
No, not for mechanoreceptors. We'll go into that. That's the special sensations, special senses. Jovita, you came late. Jovita, what do you think for osmoreceptors? What do you think that they do? Jovita Jan, going once, twice. Jovita Jan, you're gone. All right, leave it. If you don't call your name when I call you, you'll be absent. Miriam Traore, why are you here? Hi, Miriam. Miriam, are you here? Traore. Miriam left also. All right. Nuran. Nuran is here, huh? Perfect. Nuran, what do you think?
Which one? Okay.
For osmoreceptors, what do you think they do?
The osmosis, the water.
Yeah, body fluid production. Very good. Excellent. Very good. Osmoreceptors, they're checking for body fluids. Nura Jama. Very good, Nuran. Nura
Thank you.
Jama. What do you think about chemoreceptors? What do you think, or what do you think chemoreceptors would do?
I don't know. I don't
You
remember
don't know?
the answer.
What do you think? What do you think it sounds like? Chemo. Look at this chemo. What do you think chemo would mean?
Oh my God. Digestive?
No, it's not God. Chemo is not God. What do you think? Chemo would be?
Hormones? Something like that?
No, chemicals. Okay, so that's all they're doing. They're detecting chemicals. Chemoreceptors detect chemicals. So again, the name chemical. All right. Now, here's an easy one. Let's see. Who can you give an easy one to? Oya Ezra. Oya Ezra. Gone. Okay. Reem is here. My dream is here. Rumesa. Rumesa Ozkan.
Yes, sir.
What do you think, Rumesa?
Sir?
Thermoreceptors. Rumesa, what do thermoreceptors do?
I'm so sorry. I don't know. I don't remember.
Come on. Rumesa doesn't know. Who else can we pick on? Suad Samantar. Suad, remove. Gone. Bara, yes.
Yes.
Bara, what do you think?
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
Thermoreceptors, what do you think that they do? Thermoreceptors, this one here. What do you think that they're detecting?
Yeah, I think it's about to check or not check, I don't know, to realize the changes in the temperature or something like that.
Very good. Excellent. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Thermoreceptors, they're detecting temperature. Excellent. Very good. The last one, it's a little tricky. The last one is nociceptors. So let's see, maybe who knows about Adna. Who's Adna? I don't even remember. Adna?
Yes, sir.
What do you think nociceptors do?
Does it
detect neurons.
No.
Can I answer, teacher?
Okay, go ahead.
Are responsible for sending signal to the spinal cord and brain when there is it's responsible for sending thing to the spinal cord on the brain. That's right.
But no, the question is, what type of signal? What does it detect? What type of signal?
Can I
Is it
try?
detecting what?
Teacher, can I give a try?
No, Princess, you know the answer already. Who else?
Can I answer?
Me?
Hold on, M.A. Mercy, Vivo. Mercy had her hand up. Mercy. Alajo.
بنات
Vivo.
المشكلة إنه أنا فهمت إنه هي شنو يعني شنو عملها فأنا شرحت له بس دا يقول لي ما أعرف غير شي.
Good afternoon,
Teacher, can I say
yes,
something?
Mercy, go ahead. Mercy, what's the answer? Nociceptor.
Chemoreceptors, it detects chemical stimulus.
No. Nociceptors does not detect chemical stimulation. Chemoreceptors do. My question was for nociceptors. So, Mercy, okay.
I saw.
Okay, another Mercy. Mercy Alajao.
Sir?
No, sir, me. I'm going over. Look, I have people that raise their hand. I'm going to go according to them. Rehan.
Am
My
I?
dream.
Yes.
Go ahead, tell me. What do you think they do?
Which is?
Nociceptor.
What is the question?
What does the nociceptor do? What type of change does it detect?
Maybe muscle contact or.
Maybe, okay. Unfortunately not. Let's see if Amira knows. Amira, what do you think?
Sir, it detects threat or danger.
No. Good try, Amira. Very good. Good try. Saleen Shabazz, what do you think?
For nociceptors, isn't it?
For nociceptor, yes.
It's for pain and injury. It can sense the
Very good.
injury part of the skin. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Excellent. Excellent.
So
All right.
common
Perfect.
teacher, it's a pain receptor, I think.
Teacher.
Yes. Nociceptors it's looking for pain. Very good.
Pain receptor,
Oh.
yeah.
I
Pain.
think they are found on the nerve endings, right?
What? What's that?
The nerve endings of the skin.
Okay. Yes. From the skin also it'll do. Okay. Yes. All right.
Teacher.
Let me finish this up. Yes. What is it?
You was calling Saad and she was giving the answer and you
Don't
kicked
tell
her
me
out.
about Yes,
You
I know.
kicked
I
her
did.
out.
She should have answered. She did not answer.
No, she was
Anyway.
answering. She was giving the answer.
No, she didn't. She didn't give answer. Exoreceptors. All right. The location. Sensor receptors that are all right. So the last one, receptors that are defined by the location of the receptors. Exoreceptors, they're located at or near the external surface of the body. Okay, so extra means exterior or outside. So exoreceptors, they're located at or near the external surface of the body. Inter, again, we're talking about within, inside. So interoceptors, interoceptors, they can also be called visceroceptors. Visceral, V-I-S-C-E-R-O. So again, when we're talking about viscer, we're talking about internal organs. So visceroceptors, we find them within blood vessels, within organs and muscles as well. Okay. So again, these are things that are located internal. Exoreceptors, interoceptors, and again, the last one is going to be proprioceptors. Again, proprioceptors, we're talking about knowing where our limbs are, we're knowing where our head is. So these, naturally, we're going to find wherever the limbs are. We're talking about muscles, joints, and inside the ear, within the inner ear, we have proprioceptors. Okay? So again, this is how they get defined by their location. Sensory receptors get defined by the location. All right. Lastly, we move on to chapter 21. This goes over the special senses. Again, we talked about the special senses earlier on. We said, remember, special senses were, over here, 50. So special senses we said were what? We said they are taste. We said they are vision. We said they're smell, hearing, and also we said equilibrium. Okay, so these are your special senses. So this is what this chapter will go on. Oops, there we go. The chapter on special senses. So the first thing we go off and start talking about is smell, okay, or olfaction. Okay, so olfactory receptors, olfactory, is the ability to smell. Let me ask a question. How many, do you guys have any idea how many different types of smells we're able to differentiate between? Khalud. Khalud. Where is Khalud?
Teacher.
Yes. Student?
Yes, teacher.
Khalud.
Yes, I'm Khalud.
How many different types of smells do you think your nose can understand, or your brain? How many different type of smells do you think you're able to distinguish?
I don't know.
No, you don't. Okay, all right. Amina, how about you, Amina? Amina.
Yes, teacher.
How many different types of smells? You don't know. All right. Let's try one more person. Who's in red? Emre, Yavasher. Emre, Yavasher.
خلود يعني كم ريحي
Ezra Guven. Okay, Ezra Guven is gone also. Iram Atash, are you here? Iram Fire? Iram Atash. Iram Atash? Okay. Khadiyatu. And Josh and Khadiyatu. Josh.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay.
Who says yeah? Khadiyatu. Khadiyatu, what do you think? How many different smells can you distinguish? Any idea?
No, sir. I can only tell you about the senses and the brain, sense of hearing, smelling.
Okay, no problem. How about, who is this Josh? I don't know who this Josh is. And Josh, if you don't answer, I'm going to kick you out. Last time. Josh is gone. They left. Mamoon?
Yes, teacher.
Mamoon? What do you think? How
Yes,
many
yes.
different types are you able to understand? What do you think?
والله teacher, I didn't know. Sorry.
والله تمام. والله شكلي حبة. All right. Onur. Karadovan.
Yes.
How many different things can you smell?
I don't know, but I think it's 8 or something.
8. Oh, Allah, mashallah. Only 8. Okay. Believe it or not, you can actually detect, humans are able to detect more than 10,000 different types of smells. 10,000.
Okay.
So again, to make this possible, the nose, it has about, the nose has anywhere from 10 to 100 million receptors for sense of smell. again, remember, smell, we say, we use the term olfaction. All right, and it's contained and found within areas that are called olfactory epithelium. Olfactory epithelium. And again, these, 10 to 100 million receptors, they occupy an area of about 5 square centimeters. Okay, 5 square centimeters. It's a tiny area that it's extremely dense. We find it located within the superior part of our nasal cavity. It's covering the inferior surface of the cribriform plate, and it ends up stretching down along the superior nasal concha. Now, there's 3 types of cells. Okay, the olfactory epithelium is made up of 3 types of cells. There's olfactory receptors, there's supporting cells, and there's basal cells. Okay, olfactory receptors, supporting cells, and basal cells. So when you look over here, what do we have here? This is that bulb. Here's the neuron over here, the olfactory bulb neuron. And from there we have, so this part of the olfactory nerves that you see over here. These are all part of the olfactory nerve. Here's that cribriform plate. And then the bundles come down. And then you can see that their bundles are attached, or they course through these cells. So what do we have? These are the basal cells, all right, that you see in blue. Between the basal cells, we have these, the support cells that you find. These are all the support cells. And then there's dendrites that you find on the bottom. And then you can see that this olfactory cilium, they're hanging down over there, okay, below, between the 2 cells that you have. So as the molecules of odors are moving along, these little cilia, they end up attaching, or getting hit by the different type of smells, and then it ends up sending information up to the brain. This is how it works. Okay, frontal lobe of the cerebellum is over here, cerebrum's over here. Makes sense? You smell something, I don't know, whatever, your kofta, for example, or the mandi that the Yemeni make, which is delicious. It's moving along here, those smell molecules, and then this olfactory cilium, it ends up coming into contact with it, moves up along. Can you shut your microphone? Thank you, Ezra. All right. So, yeah, here's these basal cells that you see here. These are all the basal cells. All right. So, yeah, those are the different types of cells. Now, moving along with that, just make sure. All right. Moving along with that, next thing we looked at are, so that's it for smell. So aside from smell, the next sensation we had was what? Taste. Now, for taste, there are different type of taste also. Sour is rather obvious. Sour is what? Sour tastes sour. We've all tasted that. Sweet is sweet. Bitter is the opposite of sweet. Salty, that's also obvious. And then there's umami. Who knows what Rabia? Do you know what? Does Rabia know what umami is? Rabia? Boza Chiolu. Rabia. Rabia. Go on. Okay. Safia Noor. Safia, do you know what umami is?
Yes, teacher.
What is umami?
I'm Safia.
Yeah, I know, but do you know what umami is? What type of taste umami would be?
I don't know, teacher. Sorry.
No. Okay, no problem. Who else? Let's see. Sundus. Sundus. What is umami? Sundus. Sundus left. So bye-bye, Sundus. Sundus is not responding. Remove Sundus. How about Tife? Tife?
Sir?
Tife? Yes. What do you think umami is?
I don't have an idea, sir.
No problem. Okay, no problem. Zilal Polat. Zilal.
Teacher.
Zilal, what do you think is umami?
Delicious.
Sweet is also delicious. Some people like sour being delicious. Anybody have? Let me see. How about Zakia? Zakia Hassan. Zakia, do you know what umami is? Okay, Zakia doesn't know.
Teacher?
Zakia. Is your name Zakia?
No.
Okay, so Zakia, you're being removed because you're not responding. Okay. How about Wigdan? Al-Khail, Wigdan.
Yes, I'm here, teacher.
Wigdan is here. Wigdan, do you know what umami is?
Maybe Indonesian space. I don't know actually.
Okay, no problem. So umami is actually savory. Okay, it's a savory type of taste to it. So anyway, this is for taste. Next, we move on to eyes. Okay, so structures of the eye. So what do we see for the eyes? Essentially, look, eye is very complex. It's a very small area and it's very tight. A lot of things going on over here. We have oil glands in the eye, which are called the meibomian glands. The meibomian glands are oil, actually. There's tarsal glands also. Tarsal glands produce oil, actually. Tarsal glands. In addition to that, there's also meibomian glands. Both meibomian and tarsal glands, they produce fluids that help protect and keep the eye moist. Okay, so they protect against microorganisms. They keep the eye moist and well lubricated. So this is the pupil of the eye. Okay, pupil is where the light is going to be passing through. Okay, it's the opening of it. Then you have the colored part of your eye. The colored part of your eye, that is the iris. Okay, iris is the cover part of the eye. Pupil is the opening. Then there's the lens. This is where the light ends up being refracted through. Okay, the lens over here. The cornea is the front covering of the eye. Cornea. In front of the cornea, you have another a layer that is called the conjunctiva. That's protecting the eye also. Conjunctiva. Okay, this is the white part of the eye. So when you look over here, what do we have? This is how light moves through. So you can see this is the part where all the light gets focused to. Okay, the foveus, the foveus centralis, the central point. The optic disc, this part here, this is the blind spot. Okay, this is the area where you can't see. And again, because the main reason why, because of that, is because you have these blood vessels that end up obstructing that view. Okay, it end up taking up space for that. So again, this is where your retina essentially is. Okay, so this part over here, this is all retina, this yellow part. That's your retina. Underneath the retina, you have the vascular part. That's the choroid part, and then you have the sclera. Okay, this is sclera is all protective part. All right. So again, over here you can see this is the pupil. That's that opening pupil. Before that, what do we have? The cornea. And then before to the cornea, it's not seen here, you have the conjunctiva that's protecting also. Then you look at the lens over here. You can see the iris, that's the color part. All these are muscles over here. So all ciliary muscles that you see. Okay, and they essentially they're helping pull this lens and shape it to control the amount of light that is coming and going, or that's allowed to enter. Go, but how much light is able to enter. This is what they do. That's their job. When you talk about rods and cones, all right, so we're talking about photoreceptors, rods and cones. So photoreceptors, these are specialized cells that we find in the photoreceptor layer that process the light rays that eventually end up being converted into nerve impulses. And there's two primary type of photoreceptors. Again, those are either rods or cones. When you look at the sheer number of these two different types, within each retina, we have about 6 million cones. Okay, 6 million cones. In terms of rods, we have about 120 million rods, 120 million. Now, rods, very simplistically, rods allow us to see in dim light. Okay, so again, your black and white, that's and darkness, that's rods. Okay, that's what lets us see at nighttime and see black and whites. Now, all the colors that we see, that's cones. Okay, bright lights, they stimulate our cones, and this allows us to look at color vision. So essentially, that's it. All right. Let's move along. What do we see here? All right, so over here you can see the lacrimal glands. These are your tear glands. So lacrimal glands, they produce the tears. Tears fall down, they move across the eye, and then they collect at a couple of different points. We have the superior lacrimal canaliculus, and then there's also the inferior lacrimal canaliculus. They're both going to be collecting the tears that come through. What are they collected through? They're collected through the openings, which are called the lacrimal puncta. Okay. The lacrimal canaliculus, the superior and inferior lacrimal canaliculus, it will route the fluids to this part here. This is the lacrimal sac. The lacrimal sac drains into your nose, which is their lacrimal, through the lacrimal duct. So again, this is one of the reasons why you cry. You get, your nose starts to run as well. Why? Because all those fluids, they get flooded. So much fluid comes when you cry that not only do they flow down your eyes, but they also start to get flooded over here, and then they end up going over here. Okay. Cold also will cause this to constrict. When they get cold, these get constrict. So in cold, again, your eyes continue to produce the fluid. Now, as it's producing the fluid, what ends up happening? More and more fluid is produced. Again, you start to tear also. When it's very cold outside, it kind of looks like you're crying because it's dry. In the cold, it's dry. The air is very dry. Your eyes will produce more lacrimal fluid to keep it moist. And a lot of that extra, because it can't be drained fast enough, ends up falling down. So all that access, again, the other thing that happens in the wintertime, your nose starts to run. It's not really running, but one of the reasons for that, again, extra tears get produced and they start to flow in over here. Okay. So here, look at the flow of tears from the lacrimal glands through the lacrimal ducts, okay, to the superior inferior lacrimal canaliculus or canaliculi, through the lacrimal sac, through the lacrimal duct to the nasal cavity. This is the flow of tears from the glands to the nose, the nasal cavity. Finally, we go on to the ear. All right. Now, the ear is divided into three main parts. Those three main parts are as follows. We have the external ear, the middle ear, and the internal ear. As it says, external ear is what? Outside part. Middle ear is going to be the mid part, and innermost part will be the internal ear. The external ear is made up of the pinna, okay, the auricle, which is also called the auricle. There's also the external auditory canal, which also houses the ceruminous glands. And then there's a tympanic membrane, or your eardrum, okay? So let's look over here in the photograph. So this is your entire ear. This part down here, that's the lobule. So the ear, again, auricle, this is the term for it, auricle. Helix, this is the upper part, the helix, okay? Lobule, helix. Here's your external auditory canal over here, external auditory canal. This is the auditory tube over here, auditory tube. It goes into your throat, right? This is your eardrum or tympanic membrane, right? This tympanic membrane, this is the boundary from the external ear to the middle ear. So Middle ear is just this part between here and here. It's all middle ear. From this point onwards, that's all inner ear. Okay, this is all inner ear, middle ear, and then you have external ear. So it's all temporal bone that you see over here. Temporal bone is where these structures are located. The middle ear, moving on to that, is a small air-filled cavity in the temporal bone, and it's lined by epithelium, and it has these three tiny bones that conduct sound. These bones are the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. The head of the malleus, it articulates with the incus. The incus then goes and articulates with the stapes. The foot of the stapes, it fits into the oval window. The oval window. Oval window is over here. This part right over there. That's the oval window. There's oval window, and then there's also the round window. Two different things. So this oval window, then it articulates with the inner ear. And inner ear, what do we have? We have these organs. This is the organ of hearing that you see over here. This is the main thing that's responsible for hearing and also your proprioception. So right over here, there we go. So you can see this is the stapes, okay, in the oval window, and look, it's articulating with this part here. This is this is the semicircular canals over here. Semicircular canals. So this is the anterior, this is the posterior, and this is the lateral semicircular canals. Anterior, posterior, posterior, and then the lateral. So, so this is a semicircular duct over here. We have the saccule that's over here also. So again, as sound waves enter here, okay, it causes these to vibrate, this tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane then causes these bones to vibrate. These bones then start to vibrate over here, and then the contents of this structure here ends up being all manipulated, stimulated. From there, sound impulses, they go, they'll end up being conducted, and then from here they go to the brain. The brain ends up picking up the different sounds that we hear, okay? So again, this is the internal ear. Sound takes place over here. All sound conduction takes place within this part, the cochlea, okay? The semicircular canals, they're responsible for your sense for your proprioception. So for where your hand is, if you close your eyes, okay, the reason why you know where your hands are and where your head is, how you're oriented, and again, your sense of just overall balance, that's all taking place over here. All right, so that is that for this lecture.